I still remember the way the lights hit the stage that morning. Bright. Warm. Almost blinding. The kind of light that should have felt exciting, but instead, it felt like a warning. Launch day. The day Emily and I had worked toward for 2 long years. Late nights, empty wallets, broken sleep, endless hope. All of it was supposed to lead to this moment. But the second I walked into the event hall, something felt wrong. Emily wouldn't look at me. Normally, she'd be buzzing with energy, fixing her hair, rehearsing lines, triple-checking everything. But today, she stood off to the side, speaking quietly with one of the investors. When she saw me walking over, she stepped back like she didn't want to be caught in the conversation. That's when the first cold rush of doubt hit me. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she just needed space. But then she barely said one word to me while we were setting up the product demo. Not a "good morning." Not a "we got this." Just a polite nod, almost like I was some guy helping out for the day. I tried to shake the feeling, but it stuck to me like static, quiet, sharp, impossible to ignore. And then I saw it. On the giant screen above the stage, our company logo was displayed in bold white letters. But right underneath it, where our names were supposed to be side by side, there was only one name. Emily Carter. No co-founder listed. No team built. Just her. My stomach dropped so fast I swear I forgot how to breathe. I looked at her again, waiting for her to notice my shock, but she avoided my eyes like it was all part of the plan. In that moment, a quiet voice inside me whispered the truth, a truth I wasn't ready to hear: today isn't the celebration you think it is. Something is about to fall apart. And I had no idea just how far the betrayal would go, or how much this one moment would change everything that came after. If you had told me back then that Emily would one day shut me out of my own dream, I never would have believed it. Because the day we met, everything felt genuine. Everything felt right. It was 3 years ago at a tech conference in Austin. I was standing by a tiny booth, showing my rough little prototype to anyone willing to spare 30 seconds. Most people just smiled politely and walked away. Then Emily stopped. She didn't blink. She didn't rush. She asked question after question, her eyes locked on the screen like she already saw what it could become. "I think this could change how small businesses survive," she said. In that moment, it felt like someone finally understood the heart behind my idea. We ended up talking for hours, about tech, about work, about life. It felt like meeting someone who spoke the same language, even when no words were said. By the end of the day, she said something that still echoes in my mind: let's build something real. Together. And just like that, our partnership began. The early days weren't pretty. We worked out of tiny cafes, moving tables around so we could plug in our laptops. We brainstormed on napkins, sketched designs in the margins of old notebooks. Some nights we stayed up so late coding that the sunrise felt like a joke played on us. Money was tight. Stress was high. But the trust? That part came easy. Emily handled marketing and investor outreach. I dealt with development and product design. We balanced each other in ways that made the work feel less like work, and more like a mission. There were nights when we sat outside on the sidewalk after a long shift, eating cheap sandwiches and dreaming about the future. "Imagine launch day," she'd say with a smile. "Imagine people cheering for what we built." Those conversations kept us going when nothing else did. We weren't just partners. We were friends. Or at least, I thought we were. Looking back now, I can still feel the warmth of those early dreams, dreams built on hope, passion, and trust. The kind of trust one never imagined would one day be broken so quietly, and so completely. Quiet signs. Easy to ignore signs. The kind of warnings you don't want to believe, because believing them means something precious is slipping away. It started small, almost too small to notice. Emily began changing meeting times without telling me. At first, I thought it was just scheduling chaos. Startups are messy. Things move fast. That's normal. But then one morning I walked into a meeting room to find our investors already halfway through a discussion, with Emily leading it. She didn't introduce me. She didn't pause to let me catch up. She just kept talking like I was a stranger who had wandered into the wrong conference room. I laughed it off afterward, pretending it didn't sting. But deep down, something shifted. The next sign came during a podcast interview we did together. When the host asked how the company idea started, Emily smiled and said, "Well, it came to me one night when I was thinking about small business struggles." It came to her. I remember sitting there, smiling tightly, my heart sinking a little. But again, I told myself she was just nervous, maybe rambling, maybe trying to sound confident. After all, we were a team. Teams lift each other up, right? But the small signs kept coming. She started having quick calls with investors at odd hours, calls she didn't tell me about. She began reviewing financial documents without looping me in. And any time I asked questions, she brushed them off with a short, "Don't worry about it, I've got it handled." Her tone changed too. Less warm. More formal. Like she was creating distance without saying it. I didn't want to see the pattern forming. I didn't want to imagine that someone I trusted could hide something from me. So I convinced myself she was just stressed. That she needed control to feel secure. That all of these moments were nothing more than pressure getting to her. But looking back, every little moment was a quiet warning, a slow shift, a crack forming right beneath our feet. A crack I ignored until it was far too wide to escape. The moment everything truly shifted, the moment the tension stopped feeling like a misunderstanding and started feeling like a warning, happened in a boardroom overlooking downtown Austin. It was our biggest investor pitch yet. Millions on the line. The future of our startup hanging in the balance. We had rehearsed the presentation for days. Emily would open, I would walk through the tech, then we'd close together, united, balanced, a team. At least, that's how it was supposed to go. But the second she stepped up to the front of the room, something felt off. Her confidence wasn't the usual grounded kind, it was sharper, almost rehearsed in a way she hadn't practiced with me. She clicked to the first slide and said, "Over the last 2 years, I've been building a tool that will change small businesses forever." My stomach tightened. Maybe she just misspoke, I told myself. But she kept going. Every time she talked about the product, the hard work, the research, she phrased it like she had carried the entire weight alone. Like I was just someone who happened to be sitting in the room. The investors nodded, impressed. I sat there with my hands clasped under the table, trying to act calm even though my heart felt like it was slowly dropping into my shoes. When she finally gestured toward me, it wasn't to share credit. It was a quick, almost dismissive introduction, "And this is Michael," he helped with some of the technical details. I built the entire prototype from scratch. But I forced a smile. For the sake of the company. For the dream we were both supposed to believe in. After the meeting, I tried to bring it up gently. I thought maybe she didn't realize how it sounded. But she just waved me off. "You don't need to worry about pitching," she said. "I'll handle the PR from now on." Another red flag. Another door quietly closing between us. And even though I tried to push the feeling away, I couldn't ignore the truth brewing underneath her words. Emily wasn't just stepping forward. She was pushing me out. And the worst part? I still had no idea just how far she was planning to go. I remember the day everything started slipping through my fingers. It was 2 weeks before launch day, 2 weeks before the world was supposed to see what we had built. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and tried to log into our shared drive like I did every morning. But instead of the usual dashboard, a red message flashed across the screen: "Access denied." I frowned, tried again, refreshed the page, checked the Wi-Fi, same result. For a moment I actually laughed under my breath. It had to be a glitch. Startups deal with bugs every hour of the day. But then I tried opening our investor communication group. Another denial. Then another. Every system I normally used, locked. A strange heat rushed through my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just confusion, and a quiet sense of something shifting. I messaged Emily right away, "Hey, I think something's wrong with my access." She replied 10 minutes later, "Oh, yeah. Don't stress. It's a technical glitch. I'm fixing permissions." Her tone was calm. Too calm. Like this wasn't a problem at all. Like it wasn't strange that her co-founder suddenly couldn't access half the company. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But each day that passed, more doors seemed to close. Emails I used to see stopped coming in. Investor updates went straight to Emily's inbox, but not mine. Meetings were suddenly informal, or quick syncs that didn't require both of us. When I asked about them, she'd smile lightly and say, "Relax, Michael. I'm handling it. Focus on the product." That sentence, she repeated it so often it started to feel like a script she had practiced. Still, I pushed through the doubts. I told myself I was overthinking. That the pressure was getting to both of us. That the best thing I could do was keep building, keep improving, keep preparing for launch. So I stayed up late fixing bugs. I polished the demo. I rehearsed our presentation in my head even though she said she'd take the lead. But late at night, when the house was quiet and the screen glow felt too bright, a single uncomfortable thought kept coming back: if this was all just a glitch, why did it feel so intentional? And deep down, I already knew the answer, I just wasn't ready to face it yet. I've replayed that moment more times than I can count. The moment everything I built, everything we built, slipped right out of my hands and into hers. The launch event in San Francisco was bigger than anything I'd ever imagined. Spotlights sweeping across the stage, cameras lining the aisles, reporters whispering with excitement. This was supposed to be the day our work finally shined. But instead, it became the day the truth hit me like a cold wave. I was standing backstage, adjusting the demo tablet one last time. My heart was racing, but in a good way, the kind of nerves that come from being proud of something. Then, out of nowhere, I heard the host introduce the speaker: "Please welcome the founder and creator. Emily Carter." Founder. Creator. Just her. I froze. Before I could even step forward, Emily walked confidently onto the stage, alone. No glance back at me. No signal to join her. Not even a small nod that acknowledged I existed. She smiled at the crowd like she had been waiting for this exact moment her whole life. And then she did it. She started talking about the product as if every idea, every line of code, every late night belonged to her alone. My vision, my work, my journey, each word felt like another door slamming shut. The audience clapped. Investors leaned forward, impressed. Flashes from cameras lit up the room like fireworks. Meanwhile, I stood in the shadows backstage, gripping the demo tablet so tightly my hands began to shake. I tried to breathe. Tried to tell myself she would mention me any second. That this was just an intro. That she wouldn't erase me publicly. But she never said my name. Not once. When the crowd rose to their feet at the end of her speech, giving her a standing ovation, something inside me cracked in a way I can't fully explain. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was something quieter. Sadder. The kind of pain that leaves you speechless because you can't understand how someone you trusted could rewrite your story so easily. In that moment, the betrayal wasn't just private anymore. It was public. Undeniable. Complete. And as the applause echoed through the hall, one thing became painfully clear: Emily hadn't just taken the spotlight. She had taken everything. If the launch event was the strike, the next morning was the collapse. I woke up early, hoping, somehow, that things would make more sense with daylight. Maybe Emily would call. Maybe she'd apologize, explain, anything. Instead, my inbox was overflowing. Dozens of investor emails. Dozens of partnership requests. Dozens of press messages. But almost every single one started with the same line: "Hi Emily, dear Emily, congratulations, Emily." Not one mention of me. Not one question about my work. It was as if my name had been deleted from the company overnight. I scrolled through the messages with a sinking feeling in my chest. Interview offers. Funding opportunities. Feature requests. All of them addressed to her. And the worst part? She had forwarded only one message to me. Just one. No greeting, no explanation, only a short line at the top: "Can you handle the technical stuff on this? You're better behind the scenes. Better behind the scenes." Those 4 words hit me harder than the silence at the launch event. Behind the scenes, like I wasn't a partner. Like I wasn't the co-founder. Like I wasn't the person who built the foundation of everything she had just taken credit for. I tried calling her. No answer. I texted her. Nothing. Hours passed with no response. I watched the company's social media fill with pictures of her smiling next to the product I built. Emily, the visionary. Emily, the creator. Emily, the face of the company. And me? I was a ghost in my own dream. At some point, I just sat there, hands on my laptop, staring at the screen until the words blurred. All the late nights, all the sacrifices, all the excitement, it suddenly felt meaningless. Was I really that easy to push aside? Was I blind the whole time? Did she ever value what we built together, or was I just a stepping stone? By sunset, it wasn't anger I felt. It was something heavier. A deep, hollow kind of sadness that comes when the ground under you finally gives way. That night, for the first time since we started the company, I questioned everything. My choices. My trust. My place in the dream I thought we shared. And I had no idea that this rock-bottom moment would soon become the spark that changed everything. I thought I had hit the lowest point already. I thought nothing could hurt more than watching Emily erase me from my own company. But the truth was, the real shock was still waiting for me. It happened late one night, long after I should have gone to bed. I couldn't sleep, not with all the questions circling in my mind. So I opened my laptop one more time, hoping to distract myself with work. And that's when I saw it. A folder in our shared cloud drive, one I had never noticed before. Hidden deep inside layers of subfolders, tucked away like a secret no one was supposed to find. For some reason, this time, my access wasn't blocked. My hands trembled a little as I clicked into it. Inside were documents, dozens of them. Legal drafts. Investor proposals. Board restructuring plans. And on every page, one phrase kept appearing: sole founder, Emily Carter. Not co-founder. Not partner. Not shared ownership. Just her. My name wasn't missing by accident. It had been intentionally removed, months ago. Long before the launch. Long before the glitches. Long before she smiled in my face and said we were a team. She had been planning to push me out quietly, cleanly, without leaving a trace. I felt my chest tighten as I kept scrolling. Then I found the emails. Message after message between Emily and investors, her promising them a smoother structure once she took full control, her assuring them I would be phased out without disruption. Every word felt like a cold knife twisting deeper. But beneath the shock, beneath the sinking disappointment, something else began to rise. Determination. A slow, steady fire I hadn't felt in weeks. My despair didn't disappear, it transformed. I realized that Emily hadn't just betrayed me. She underestimated me. She thought I would break quietly, fade away, accept the role she gave me. She had no idea who she was dealing with. As I sat there in the quiet glow of my laptop screen, the start of a plan began forming, a plan built not on revenge for revenge's sake, but on truth and justice. She had crossed a line. And now, for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. The old version of me would have stormed into Emily's office the second I found those documents. I would have demanded answers, shouted, asked her how she could do something so cold. But this wasn't the time for explosions. This was the time for strategy. I didn't need to fight her publicly, not yet. Not when the truth was powerful enough to speak on its own, if I gathered it the right way. So the next morning, with barely any sleep, I started collecting everything. Emails. Timestamps. Design files with my original signature. Prototype logs showing my coding history. Screenshots of her removal plans. Copies of the legal drafts where she had erased my name. Every piece of evidence was a brick, and I was quietly building a wall of truth she wouldn't be able to climb. Still, even with all the proof in front of me, I needed guidance. Someone who had navigated messy business wars before. Someone who didn't let emotions win over logic. So I called the one person I trusted more than anyone outside the company, my old mentor, Daniel. Daniel had seen every kind of startup conflict you could imagine. When we met at a quiet diner on the edge of town, he listened without interrupting, his expression steady and unreadable. When I finally finished pouring everything out, he nodded slowly and said, "Michael, you don't win battles like this by yelling. You win by being patient and precise." He reminded me that Emily's biggest weakness wasn't her ambition. It wasn't even her dishonesty. It was her obsession with public image. She cared about interviews, photo ops, applause. She cared about being admired. Being seen as the shining hero of the story. And Daniel was right, people who depend on praise crumble when the truth surfaces at the wrong moment. Don't confront her yet, he said. Let her think she's winning. Meanwhile, you prepare something she can't ignore. That advice shifted everything inside me. From that day forward, every step I took was quiet, steady, calculated. I wasn't acting out of heartbreak anymore. I was acting with purpose. Emily had built a public throne for herself. She believed the world saw her as untouchable. She had no idea that the truth, once revealed, could turn that spotlight into a mirror she wouldn't be able to hide from. And I was getting ready to hold that mirror up. The moment I decided to fight back, everything in me changed. I wasn't angry in the loud, explosive way people expect. My anger had cooled into something sharper, something steady. I finally understood that the best revenge wasn't yelling or calling her out on stage. It was the truth, quiet, undeniable, and lined up in her own handwriting. So I started building the report. Not a rant. Not a messy emotional letter. A clean, factual record of everything Emily had done. I collected every email she sent to investors, especially the ones where she said I would be phased out. I included the timestamps from years of coding work, every line traced back to my name. I added our financial statements showing my investment into the company, the early expenses I covered, and the prototypes created on my equipment. I even included screenshots of the legal drafts she tried to hide, each one listing her as the sole founder. The more I added, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't stress. This wasn't an accident. This was a planned takeover, one she thought I would never be strong enough to fight. As the report grew thicker, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. For the first time since launch day, I felt control returning to me. But the most powerful part? I didn't even need my own words to expose her. I used hers. Her messages. Her promises. Her instructions to remove me quietly. Her claims to investors that she built the company alone. Every sentence she wrote became a piece of truth pointing straight back at her. When the report was finished, I didn't send it to Emily. There was no point. I sent it directly to the board. To the major investors. To the legal counsel. And finally, just to make sure nothing got twisted, to the PR team responsible for the company's public image. I didn't add emotion. I didn't add blame. I let the document speak louder than anything I could ever say. Then I sat back in my chair, exhaled slowly, and whispered to myself, "It's out of my hands now, but it's finally in the right ones." Emily wanted the spotlight. She had no idea how harsh that spotlight would feel when the truth came shining through. The storm didn't hit slowly. It hit all at once, loud, sudden, and impossible for Emily to escape. She had booked a huge live TV interview the week after launch. Prime time. National audience. A shining moment she had been chasing for months. She walked onto the studio set glowing with confidence, smiling like the world finally belonged to her. I watched from home, sitting on the edge of my couch, my report already in the hands of every major investor and media outlet. All I had to do now was wait. The interviewer started with easy questions. How did you come up with this idea? What inspired you to build the product? Emily answered effortlessly, repeating the same practiced lines she'd used on stage: my vision, my work, my journey. She looked so sure of herself. So polished. So untouchable. And then it happened. A producer rushed something to the interviewer, a sheet of paper, slid quietly across the desk. The interviewer's expression changed, just slightly, but enough to make Emily's smile falter for a second. And then the question dropped, "Emily, several documents have surfaced claiming you are not the sole founder. They include emails, prototypes, and legal drafts with another name attached. Would you like to comment?" Her face froze. For the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't have an answer ready. She blinked fast, swallowed hard, and forced a laugh that sounded nothing like confidence. "Oh, well, that must be a mistake. I led the vision, so," the interviewer cut in gently but firmly, "but these documents show your partner did the development, the design, and half the financing. Why were those details never mentioned?" Emily's voice cracked. Her hands started shaking. She tried to redirect, but every attempt made her look more cornered, more exposed. And then the final blow landed. A breaking news banner flashed across the bottom of the screen: "Major investors request emergency review of company leadership." Her perfect image shattered on live television. By the time the interview ended, investors had already begun freezing funds. Board members were sending out emergency meeting invites. The company Emily tried to claim for herself was suddenly falling apart under the weight of her own lies. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the smallest breath of relief. The truth had finally caught up to her. The morning after Emily's interview felt strangely quiet. No anxiety. No tension pulling at my chest. Just a calm I hadn't felt in months, like the tide had finally shifted. By noon, I received the email I'd been waiting for: "Emergency board meeting, attendance required." When I walked into the conference room, every board member looked serious, focused, almost embarrassed. The air felt heavy, but for once, not on my shoulders. They invited me to sit. On the table were printed copies of the report I'd sent, the emails, the drafts, the prototypes, the evidence. My evidence. The truth laid out so clearly that even the people who barely knew me could see what had happened. One of the board members spoke first. "Michael, we reviewed everything. What Emily did was unacceptable, and it cannot continue." Another added, "You should have never been removed from your own company. We owe you an apology, and a correction." Those words felt surreal. After weeks of feeling invisible, pushed aside, forgotten, I was finally being seen again. Then came the decision. Emily was officially removed from her leadership role. Effective immediately. No more interviews. No more spotlight. No more control. The company would be restructured to reflect the real history, the real work, the real founder. Then they turned to me. "Michael," the chairman said, "we want you to lead. This company exists because of your vision and your integrity. We believe you're the right person to rebuild it." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Not out of shock, but out of relief. A deep, quiet relief that washed over me like a second chance. I accepted. But not with pride or ego. With responsibility. Over the next few months, I rebuilt the company piece by piece. I hired people who valued honesty. I created a culture where credit was shared, not stolen. Where trust mattered more than flash. Where no one would ever feel erased the way I did. And slowly, the brand began to heal. Our product grew stronger. Our team grew closer. My belief in what we were building finally felt real again. Taking back what was mine wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoring the truth, and creating something worthy of the dream I once had. A dream no one could take from me again. When I look back now, it almost feels like a different lifetime, a version of me that was hopeful, then broken, then rebuilt from the ground up. After Emily was removed, the company didn't magically bounce back overnight. In fact, the first few weeks were rough. Investors were nervous. The team felt shaken. The public wasn't sure what to believe. But for the first time in months, the silence didn't scare me. It motivated me. I woke up every morning with a clear goal: rebuild the company with honesty, clarity, and trust. No shadows. No secrets. No egos. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Our product started gaining traction again. Not because of flashy interviews or dramatic launches, but because small businesses across the country actually loved it. They trusted it. They trusted us. We focused on listening to customers, fixing what needed fixing, improving what needed improving. Every small success felt like a step away from the chaos Emily had created, and a step towards something real. One of the first decisions I made as CEO was hiring a new team. Not the most impressive resumes. Not the "look at me" personalities. But people who cared. People who believed in the mission. People who valued transparency, loyalty, and teamwork. People who understood that a company is built on trust long before it's built on product. Our meetings became honest. Our work became focused. And the atmosphere changed completely: lighter, brighter, healthier. And the more I watched this new team grow, the more I realized something important: success feels different when you earn it without a shadow standing beside you. There were days I missed the early excitement Emily and I once shared, before things twisted, before trust broke. But every time those memories surfaced, I reminded myself of something stronger: the company didn't survive because of her. It survived because the truth came out. Because the vision was real. Because I refused to give up when someone tried to erase me. Today, when I walk through our office, a place filled with laughter, ideas, and people who genuinely want to be here, I finally feel it: success built on honesty feels better than any spotlight ever could. If there's one thing this entire journey taught me, it's that loyalty is powerful, but it's also dangerous when given to the wrong person. For a long time, I believed loyalty meant standing by someone no matter what. Through late nights, tough meetings, hard choices, I thought being a good partner meant being patient, forgiving, understanding. But I learned something I wish I had understood sooner: some partners don't deserve your loyalty. Especially the ones who ask for trust but never offer honesty in return. Emily didn't break me in one loud moment. She broke me in small pieces: tiny red flags I ignored, excuses I accepted, doubts I pushed aside because I didn't want to imagine the truth. I thought protecting the partnership meant staying silent. I thought speaking up would cause cracks. What I didn't realize was that the cracks were already there, and they were growing behind my back. If I could talk to the version of myself who first met her, the excited, hopeful guy who thought he had found a perfect partner, I'd tell him this: trust people, but also trust your instincts. Listen when something feels wrong. And never let someone dim your place in your own story. Because the truth is, boundaries matter. Transparency matters. And no dream, no matter how big, is worth losing yourself for. But here's the part I'm proudest of: I didn't let her betrayal define me. I didn't let her lies shut down my future. I used the truth, rebuilt what was broken, and created something stronger than what she tried to take. And in the end, that's what real resilience looks like. Not revenge. Not fighting fire with fire. But standing tall in who you are, even when someone tries to rewrite your worth. So if you're listening to this story and seeing your own reflection somewhere in it, in a partnership that doesn't feel equal, in a friendship that feels one-sided, in a dream you fear someone else might claim. Remember this: you are not replaceable. Your work matters. Your voice matters. And the right people will never ask you to shrink so they can shine. Some partners don't deserve your loyalty, but you always deserve a future built on truth, respect, and the courage to stand up for yourself. If this story hit home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I share new stories every week, stories of betrayal, justice, and the strength to rise again. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.